Close your eyes and imagine this. You wake up in the morning. There's no smartphone, no bed, no language that you recognize. All around you, there's only the smell of smoke, animal hides, and your family. But not the family you know. They're shorter than you, much broader across the shoulders, with heavy brow ridges. One of them hands you a piece of raw meat and lets out a low grunt. That's your father. This is What If, and today we're asking, what would happen if you were raised by Neanderthals from the day you were born? First, forget everything you've seen in movies. Neanderthals weren't dumb, club-wielding cavemen. They lived on Earth for around 400,000 years. For comparison, Homo sapiens have existed for only about 300,000 years. They were here before us. Their brains were about the same size as ours. According to some estimates, they may have even been slightly larger. They buried their dead. They made ornaments from feathers and seashells. They used ochre as a pigment. And they may have even sung. Now here's the fact that changes everything. Around 1 to 4% of the DNA of most people alive today comes from Neanderthals. Our ancestors didn't just meet them. They had children together. In a very real sense, we're part Neanderthal ourselves. So the question, what if you were raised by Neanderthals, isn't a fantasy about monsters. It's a question about another branch of the human family. Now imagine you're a newborn. The year is roughly 50,000 years ago, somewhere in what is now Europe. The very first thing that saves your life is their sense of community. Neanderthals lived in small groups of around 10 to 30 individuals. They cared for the sick and the injured. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of Neanderthals who survived severe injuries for years, something that would have been impossible without the help of others. So you'll be fed, you'll be kept warm, and you'll be protected. But there's one problem. Your body isn't built like theirs. Neanderthals evolved for life in the Ice Age. They were short, stocky, incredibly muscular, with broad chests and large noses that helped warm freezing air before it reached their lungs. You, on the other hand, have a lighter frame and much less muscle mass. During your first years, you'll feel colder than everyone else. Your Neanderthal parents will probably wrap you in extra animal hides. You'll quickly learn to stay close to the fire. By the time you're about 3 years old, you've already mastered something nobody formally taught you. You watch, you imitate, you repeat. That's how Neanderthals passed down knowledge, not through long explanations, but through observation and demonstration. Now here's where things get really interesting. You can speak. Your anatomy allows you to produce a huge range of complex sounds. In Homo sapiens, the larynx sits lower in the throat, giving us the ability to create rich, flexible speech. Neanderthals, however, likely had a higher positioned larynx. Their vocalizations were probably simpler and rougher, somewhere between speech and deep, guttural sounds. You'll try to talk. They won't fully understand you. You'll listen to them, and you won't understand everything either. But children are incredibly adaptable. By the time you're about 5 years old, you'll develop your own hybrid way of communicating, a mix of sounds, gestures, facial expressions, and body language. Linguists call this kind of system a pidgin, a simplified language that emerges between groups with different ways of communicating. But would you actually think like a Neanderthal? Partly, yes. Without a rich language, certain abstract ideas become much harder to develop. The concept of tomorrow depends on language. The idea of justice or fairness depends on language. You'll live almost entirely in the present moment. Not because you're less intelligent, but because your brain never received the tools needed to think in a different way. By the age of 10, you're a full member of the group. Neanderthals were ambush hunters. Instead of chasing animals over long distances, they got as close as possible before launching a sudden attack, with wooden spears, heavy stones, and sometimes even their bare hands. It was incredibly dangerous. Judging by the injuries found on Neanderthal skeletons, they suffered broken ribs, shattered arms, and fractured skulls about as often as modern rodeo riders. Every hunt could be your last. And now, you're hunting with them. Your body is lighter. You're a little faster. That becomes your advantage. Instead of standing in the front line, you'll often be the one driving the prey toward the waiting hunters. You'll learn to read footprints like words on a page. You'll feel the wind before you see it. You'll sit perfectly still for hours without making a sound. Skills that most people today will never need. Will become the difference between life and death. Within the group, you'll have friends, rivals, and maybe something that feels like love. Neanderthals clearly formed deep emotional bonds. They cared for one another. They mourned their dead. Some archaeological sites may even suggest they buried loved ones with flowers, although scientists still debate that idea today. But you'll always be different. They'll notice it. Your face is flatter. Your features are more delicate. Even the way you move feels slightly unfamiliar. Most likely, you'll become known as the strange one. But still, one of them. Not an outsider, yet never completely the same. That quiet feeling of being different will stay with you for the rest of your life. And yet, you'll never truly be alone. In the modern world, millions of people feel isolated despite smartphones and social media. You never will. Your group is your entire world, and you are theirs. So, what kind of person would you become? Physically, you'd be unbelievably tough. Research suggests Neanderthals were stronger than most professional athletes alive today. Emotionally, you'd be deeply connected to the people around you. Grounded. Present. Living almost entirely in the here and now. Intellectually, you'd be brilliant in some ways, and completely blind in others. You could read nature like an open book, but abstract theories, philosophy, or advanced mathematics would never even occur to you. And here's one final thought. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals disappeared. To this day, nobody knows exactly why. Was it climate change? Disease? Competition with our own ancestors? Maybe all of the above. But one thing is certain. They never truly vanished. Their genes are still alive inside us. Every time your immune system fights off a virus, part of that defense comes from your Neanderthal ancestors. Every time your body adapts to cold weather, a small piece of that ability comes from them too. So maybe the real question isn't, what if you were raised by Neanderthals? Maybe it's, what if part of you already is one? This is What If. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.